Welcome to Truck You Podcast. My name is Sebastian. This podcast is all about trucking. We love diesel engines, semi-trucks, being on the road, and freedom. So let's go. Welcome to the Truck You Podcast. My name is Sebastian. Today is my special guest. I have Kaleo Taft. How are you doing, brother?
Good. Aloha.
Good.
Yeah.
Right, so I wanted to have you on the podcast because I wanted to have a little one-on-one and dig in a little maybe into what you're doing, what your industry is, what niche you're in, and all the good stuff. So, I would like to have you just, tell me a little bit about first, what do you do at the company and what your company is.
Yeah, sure. So name of the company, wellerttrucking. I partnered or am partners with Ray Wellert. I met Ray in 2015 as I moved to Dallas from Hawaii, as my surf picture in the back might allude to. I moved to Dallas, of all places, and I was building a chemical company, and I was shipping stuff all over the country. And I was like, man, freight's expensive. I've got to figure out a way to lower my freight costs. What do I do? And through a mutual friend, I met Ray, who lived in Ohio at the time, still lives there now. That's where the business is based. And we started scheming how, we could help each other, right? I could use him as a vendor and ultimately serve my customers better. And that's what we did for a couple of years. Through a series of events, I got out of being in a chemical company. Although along those lines, I should say, I got my CDL, I got my Class A. I was hot-shotting chemicals too. I was driving, and Ray's company was helping as well, do other things. We were paying them for it. And then at some point, I'm like, man, trucking, there's a lot of money to be made in freight, and especially specialized freight. And so that's where we started scheming and working together. And we basically went from a sole proprietorship in 2016 to, now we have 28 trucks. Primary focus of wellerttrucking is food grade kosher loads. So we're kosher certified, halal certified, but we mostly do food grade ingredients and feed grade ingredients. So we're either feeding people or we're feeding animals that ultimately feed people. Okay.
What did you do? You skimmed over very quickly a lot of this stuff I wanted to cover, but what did you do before, if you don't mind me asking? How did you end up in the trucking industry, and what were you doing before that?
Yeah, sure. So I'm one of those, I guess you could call them serial entrepreneurs. I started a specialty, materials company back in 2000, had a successful exit out of that. Got into trying to make cancer drugs, ended up moving to Dallas and starting, a chemical company that was primarily producing consumer type chemicals. So we did a lot of cleaners and soaps. And ultimately when I met Ray, what we started to do, which was, part of Ray's idea as well, and he's the original architect, was to make asphalt release agents. So we're doing stuff to get the asphalt out of dump trucks. And so that's where really a lot of the business took off, and we're delivering, thousands of gallons, from Dallas all the way to Miami or Ohio or Minnesota. So we had a pretty big reach, but what that meant was pretty expensive freight. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, man, we got to figure out a way how to cut these costs. And that's where we put our heads together.
Okay. And what year was that? When did you guys started together, working together?
Yeah, so we started working together in 2015, very sporadically. And then, as the business started growing, my chemical business and his trucking business, I think things were really in full-fledged around 2018. And then I got out of the chemical business in 2019, but then focused full-time on the trucking company.
Okay, so other than recognizing the opportunity in trucking, was there anything else that, as a serial entrepreneur, you probably see opportunity everywhere, right? It's
Sure.
It's a disease we have.
Sure.
But how is, from sitting right now where you're at currently with the company, what is something that you didn't expect going into it?
Well, let me take a step back, actually. When we were making chemicals in Dallas, right? I would have orders for tanker trucks to come in and deliver chemicals to our facility, right? And I was amazed at just how crappy the level of communication was with the service we were getting, right? So like we'd order a load of, a soap or something, right? 45,000 pounds. I'm going to put it in our holding tanks or something. And the broker would say one thing as to when the truck would be there. It'd be like, oh, Friday afternoon, 3:00. I'd be like, oh, perfect. Friday afternoon at 6:00, would come and I'd be like, where's the truck? And the broker couldn't give me an answer. You push and try and figure it out. They finally reluctantly give you the number to the truck driver. You call the truck driver. The guy's like, I'm out of hours. I'll be there Monday. I'm like, oh my God. So that was really a catalyst. And then, and being an EO, right, and talk to other guys that were like either selling used cars or, they all had freight issues. But what I recognized pretty early on was the fact that, trucking companies or freight companies, not all of them, but a lot of them were very poor communicators, right? And it wasn't the problem whether it was Friday or Monday. The problem was the customer thought it was Friday and then it was Monday. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody can manage their business if they know what the reality is. And I felt like there was a lot of smoke and mirrors in trucking. You're just not very responsive to your customers, which is really the opportunity as to how, I said, oh, maybe there's something there.
I can share that with you. So how, as far as that, have you been able to now understand why the smoke mirrors were happening, and how that side of the business is now you're on that side of the business? Have you seen that on your side where you're like, oh, now I understand why it happened?
Listen, I mean, we've been pressured before to give a reason, which is maybe not the right reason as to why the freight is not there, right? In our business, it can be tank wash maintenance, driver issues, shipper receiver, etc. But bad news doesn't get better with time.
Yeah.
And frankly, customers really don't care why or what the reason is. They just want to know what the reality is and they can deal with it.
Yeah, that's true. So tell me a little bit about the tanker business itself. I have no exposure to that side. Tell me, do you guys own your own assets, your trucks?
Yeah, so we're about a 2/3, 1/3 split. So 2/3 of our trucks are company owned and with company drivers, and then the other third is owner operators. But all the trailers are owned by us. The trailers are pretty specialized. They're heat traced, or they have heat coils in them. They have food grade pumps at the back, and they're of the right volume to kind of haul the payload that we want to haul.
Okay. So how has the market changed recently as far as assets and buying tankers? Because I don't want to talk about trucks, but particularly I'm interested in the tanker side of sourcing them, finding them. Have you seen any changes due to COVID or whatever happened in the last couple of years?
Oh yeah, I mean it's crazy. I would say that the assets in general, a brand new asset that has gone up in value about 50%. It's about a 2-year lead if you're going to buy it new, which is problematic when you're in growth mode like we are. So we scoured the used market, and even the used market is up, I'd say, about 50% as well. But that's the biggest limiting factor to our growth. I mean, the work is there. Our customers, like us, but we just can't find the trailers. It's not a driver power unit issue. It's a trailer issue.
Okay. And so if you don't have issues finding drivers that have that specific experience or owner operators, that you don't see none of those, you would be able to find power if you were expanding?
We do go out and hire people with little experience or no experience. But one of the things we've learned over the years, and maybe we'll get into this later, is just to take the time early on to train somebody. I don't think it's hard to do what we do necessarily from a skill set, but just to throw somebody in it and hope they do well is maybe a problem. I mean, people can put a forklift through a pallet of Coke, let's say, but if you do the wrong thing in tanker, you either implode the tank, which they're hard to come by, or you spill thousands of gallons on the ground.
So what is something that drivers should know well, or tell me maybe what is the skill, like what are drivers required to do? Where is the training the most important part when you bring somebody on? Like, what do they need to know and what do they need to do?
Just need to understand the payload that they're carrying, right? The risks and hazards of that payload, and then the order of operations. But more importantly than both of those things is the temperament that when something looks maybe not right, just stop, ask, call dispatch, call us, we can figure it out. But where we get into trouble is where somebody thinks they might know what they're doing, or they kind of know enough, and then they maybe turn the wrong knob or pull the wrong lever, and then we have a problem.
Yeah. So that's what I would be interested in. Like, how hard is it to operate a tanker like that, right? I've never done it, but is that where you're seeing the I would say the caution of the driver? Or because I can like I do intermodal, right? So that's you need to know chassis, you need to understand what to look for, you need to know if something goes wrong, how to problem solve for specific things that are happening with the box, with the chassis.
Yeah.
Do you see the similarity with tankers? Because obviously what I'm asking is, like, you have gauges, right? You monitor that, and that's why, again, I don't know how it works, but is that where the bulk of mistakes happen, or what's like the mistakes that you often see?
Bulk of mistakes happen with haste, right? So again, it comes down to temperament in a process, right? Like we'll drop, to make sure that, say, the tank is empty, or to make sure that your hoses are not full with liquid and you spill them out after, you look at, or to look in the top of the tank and make sure your tank is indeed empty before, unhooking things. A lot of it is just patience, care, and custody, but when we're hiring, we're looking for guys that have mechanical aptitude too, right? Our back office staff, they're all drivers. They all know the industry. They all know every trailer that we have and what the specifics are, right? So when there's questions that are coming in from the field, as long as the driver isn't hasty and impatient, we can pretty much walk them through anything that's maybe above their pay grade.
Okay, that makes sense. And do the drivers are responsible? If you could walk me through the process, are they responsible to wash the tankers? How does that work?
Sure. A lot of tank washes are driven from vendors. So our vendors, whether it's Arthur Daniel Midland or some of these large agrochemical companies, will say like, oh, these are our approved tank wash locations, and we need to go there. And because it's food grade, you go in there and they wash your tank. They tag it out, right? So it's basically a sterile environment. And then when you go to the shipper will break those seals, load, seal it up again, and then give your paperwork, and off you go.
Okay. So it doesn't seem that like flatbed operation where you just have to make sure everything is secure, right? It's
yes.
a lot easier.
Yes. Yeah.
So tell me, with looking back a little bit, because you've been doing this for how long now? Since 2016, 19, how many years?
Yeah, let's call it 6 or 7 years, of like full-time effort.
What is something that you would do different if you were starting over? What is something that you would, do different now?
Yeah. I can't remember what it was, but the mistakes that we've made have been expensive and costly, and were I to do it over again, and easier said than done, it would have been super helpful to be with a group of peers, maybe like yourself, Sebastian, to say like, how would you guys do this, or what are we missing, right? Like, we've made some dumb mistakes over the years, and ones that are super preventable, and some of that is the vendors you choose. Even, a perfect example is like, we work with an insurance company. Some people have this adversarial relationship with insurance. Ours is actually constructive. I'm like, okay, look at our CSA. What do you see? Let me talk to you guys. Like, like, how do we get better? What training software should we use? What are the best companies that you insure? What are their ELD systems? And so that's when we started doing that, we started, righting the ship, if you will, and getting better as a business.
Yeah. And I just want to clarify for everybody listening that we're both in EO. You mentioned before, EO is Entrepreneurs Organization. So that's how we know each other. And it's something that I always, I joined EO in 2016. What year did you join, Kaleo?
See, I got to think about that. 19.
2019, yeah.
Yeah.
So because the reason I'm bringing this up is because, every business is prone to make a lot of mistakes. And as we've done massive mistakes. I'm paying for them almost nonstop still. And it's just it comes with two things, right? Putting the right people in the right seats, all the other aspects of running a business. But at the same time, all I hear from our peers or even people that are way ahead of us tell me, everybody's trying to figure this out. And even at a higher scale, you have just more expensive mistakes, right? And I always like hearing that because at a time it doesn't feel like a mistake, right? But I can tell you from my experience, last year I made some decisions that seemed okay. And then this year it turns out they weren't really good decisions, but you wouldn't be able to predict it. You can predict market conditions or anything that it's thrown at your face as a business owner. And we beat ourselves up for it, right? But that's where the stories are. That's where the lessons are. To me, I feel like that's why I wanted to hear from you what were some of the obstacles and setbacks, because that only made you a better operator and better business owner, right?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. So tell me, how is, as far as where you're trying to go, what you're building, give me a little bit of your insight on your vision and what you guys are doing as far as moving forward, and what's your plan for the next few years?
Trying to get to, I don't want to be more than 50 trucks. Again, we're roughly 30 trucks. Again, the limiting factor to that is trailer asset acquisitions. But I really want to be known as like the go-to in our region for food grade chemicals or food grade ingredients, right? So like, if you're, I don't know, pick a food grade like Coca-Cola or Sara Lee or Mars or somebody that you want to work with guys like us that are preferred. And I see that as an opportunity in the industry. It's hard to look at all the carriers that do what we do and then differentiate and say, well, which one is better than the other one? Which one provides better customer service? That doesn't come up on a spreadsheet or a web search is easy, but that's ultimately the reputation and the goal of the business that we intend on getting to.
How do you guys acquire customers? What's your strategy?
We've been blessed. I mean, just quite frankly, we got into doing food grade chemicals for basically we're taking, vegetable oils into chicken farms to make chickens gain weight. And we did that for multiple years and just, I wouldn't say very regularly, but at times kind of reached out to other companies and it's really been a long haul. But to answer your question, most of our customers are word of mouth.
Okay.
And now those customers are huge, which is, amazing. But at the same time, we're just a very small vendor to what the total demand for these customers are or want.
Okay, so you still see a lot of demand, even though overall, what I'm seeing, the market's slowing down significantly. You still see demand for what are you guys doing for tankers? Yeah.
Okay. I think when people have to eat and when they, that helps the demand, and because the trailers are specialized and they're so hard to come by, I don't think we get a lot of like what I call the Amazon phenomenon. Mm-hmm. Right, where guys that do a lot of dry van, want to come into our space. It's a little more difficult to do so.
I wanted to touch a little bit more on what is there, if you were gonna go out and buy trailers, like what is it, something that, what's like the oldest you would look like? In some modes, it doesn't matter. Like you can buy a dry van for $10,000, but how does it apply to tankers?
Yeah, we try to stint in reefer and dry van, and you don't see that as much, right? You don't see like the 5-year or 10-year like limiting in age for trailers to be used at facilities or trucks for that matter. I think the demand is high enough that vendors just want to know that the asset is in good working order. They'll audit us and they'll take a look, and even the Orthodox Union for our kosher certification would do the same. But yeah, there's no age limit. I mean, the trailers are almost like glider kits, if you will. I mean, you
Yeah.
can have these old ones, you keep them in good working order, and the customers don't care.
Yeah, keep restoring them, right, and just using it as
Yeah,
just like airplanes.
yeah,
I always tell some, when you mentioned glider kits, and I'm big on glider kits, and they everybody's like, oh yeah, so what's a glider kit? I'm like, well, so you invest in an asset, you buy a truck, and just keep rebuilding it, just like an airplane. Oh, airplanes, yeah, well, that's the analogy I use. Like how
yeah,
airliners just buy and just keep, because
yeah.
it's such an expensive asset. You just don't want to dump it after 3
Well, I
years, and
mean,
then
yeah, I mean, look, right. And the name of the game in today's market space is just uptime, right? I mean, we have a couple of 12-month-old trucks that we bought, but when there's a warranty issue, that's great. I mean, it means nothing. It matters how fast that dealer can turn the truck.
yeah,
And
exactly.
sometimes, yeah, and sometimes when it's an older truck and you're good at fixing your assets and you can forecast what parts you need, you can keep the asset rolling and make more money for your business.
Yeah. Do you own your shop?
Yeah, we do. So we've got two full-time guys, probably three full-time guys in the near future. But yeah, that's been a huge benefit for us, and not only keeping our fleet rolling, but the owner operators that work with us as well.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you, what was your hardest lesson so far in business?
That's a tough question. Um, I think we can do a lot of things better. So there's a lot of lessons out there, but I'd say that the biggest lesson we learned as a trucking company, and I mean, the government's not going to like this answer, but is to hair follicle all employees. Like,
Okay.
so when we do those background checks and we hair follicle employees, and of course there's a clearinghouse aspect of it as well, we understand, maybe that there won't be odd surprises. As I mean, there's always surprises, but the odd surprises, right? Like guys coming into work or calling in to work sick, or weird speeds or things like that. And so when we started doing that, we started getting really a hold of our safety program and banging the gavel and not making exceptions. That's when we said, oh, okay, we have a good labor pool now to build our business on, which really plays into our customer service direction and strategy.
Yeah. So let me touch on that really quick, because I think you're saying. So did you when you started looking into driver pool or hiring people more closely, you've seen what was what I'm trying to ask you is, because I have an experience share that I was going to tell you with hiring drivers is, have you had issues with weed or like alcohol and drug uses, or what was happening?
I would just say we've had performance issues. Like why is your tire bald and you didn't do a pre-trip, or why are you calling into work sick now, or just. And when we started saying, oh, no, we're going to hair follicle, we're going to do good background checks, it kind of took some of that variability of odd behavior
Yeah.
out the door. It hasn't I mean, we're in trucking. It hasn't eliminated 100%, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I would say that was something that, was we needed to do. That plus cameras, forward-facing cameras in the trucks have been huge. I mean, when we first started, we weren't doing that. I mean, we're using Keep Trucking, Emotive, and we didn't have the forward-facing cameras, and you just see stuff and you didn't understand. But man, now that it's all at your fingertips in the office, I mean, we just have a tighter handle on just driver behavior in general.
Yeah, I
So
can share that with you, because what I mean, Illinois legalized weed, so what I've started seeing an uptick was, it's like it's that much harder now finding drivers, if
yeah,
and the testing is, if it's widely available, and with alcohol at least you have some indications, with weed too, right? But and I'm sharing that because when that started, it was like, okay, well, now we're seeing an uptick in a lot of drivers just
yeah.
using, right? And it's just that just shrinks the driver pool, right? That's why I'm clearinghouse works, all that beautiful thing. But then you sometimes hire a driver that has everything perfect, everything checks out, and then all of a sudden you have this one performance issue. And we try to. I have a. I don't know if you guys do similar thing, but we check our trucks on a biweekly basis. So if we don't see something, we're trying to make sure that somebody from the shop is checking on the truck, right? And that usually gives me an indication, because not only I've had a long time ago instances where you could literally smell weed in the truck. I'm like, wait a second, we need to look into this. And so that was something that I've learned since the legalization of weed, how that just skyrocketed in where we are at, right? So
sure,
furtherly shrinking the driver pool, which I don't know if there's a trucker shortage right now, but certainly if we keep legalizing, well, I'm not against it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not advocating for or against. What I'm just saying is it just throws you a wrench into a wheel, right? You got to be able to figure out how.
And it's the rule. Yeah, it's the rules in which we have to play by, right? I mean, it's what it is.
Yeah. What do you see as far as trucking industry? What do you think is missing in the trucking industry? Is there anything that you think trucking industry needs?
Oh, fun. I got to think about that a little bit.
And you think, and I'll, because I didn't send you my questions, I was going to surprise you with them, but you have some time to think about it, because I like to hear from operators and people that are in the industry, like what is the macro trucking. Because I have my opinion on it, and I think my subscribers know it's usually around emissions and truck reliability, right? But what is something that you would say trucking industry needs or could be better at something?
I think you probably have more I don't know background on this than I do, but I would say, I feel like there's in some regards should be visibility on pricing in some cases. I feel like we as carriers, when we work with brokers, and sometimes we'll get a rate and we're like, man, I can't believe we got that rate. I wonder what the broker's charging, or when the economy goes bad and you see van rates like $1.75 or something like that, and you're like, what? How does this? And I don't know if that's right or not, but I just feel like this industry or this country, there's 3 million drivers here, and now there's this huge surplus of trucks and assets in certain areas. And I feel like, the economy is causing some of that, but I also feel like the market pressures are playing into that. And when you have a brokerage, playing middleman and taking their cut, sometimes I feel like that cut, emphasis on the word feel, might be a little more than it should be. Yeah.
I would say maybe there's hope in technology, right? And having the connection between carrier and shippers directly, eliminating maybe, brokerage serves its purpose, right? I don't want to say anything, but at the same time, you're right. You slow down, the economy slows down, and then it just pushes, companies out of the market. And I guess with the recent volatility, with the demand we had to meet, and then now it just drops like a rock in the water, right? Like, what do you do? Unfortunately, that's free market, and we have to be able to deal with it. But I agree with you. I think it's more about visibility as far as how could technology help with actually pushing it out to the carriers and people that actually hold the stuff, right? But I don't know. We'll see how the technology, like Uber Freights and all the big guys how that's going to unfold. I don't think it's there yet,
Yeah.
Tell me, what's your website? Where can somebody find you? And all the good stuff.
Appreciate that. Sure. The easiest way to find us is www.wellert.com. And you learn about our company, what we do, and what lanes we like to do.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you, brother. Thank you for your time. And that's it for today. Appreciate you. Talk to you soon, and see you later.
Peace. All right, Sebastian. You all, man. Take care.